Good morning, buenos días.
Buenos
¿Cómo
días.
estamos? It's so good to be here with you, Calcasa, Sandra, your leadership, every single one of you. I haven't even said good morning to the promotoras, así que buenos días, promotoras, que gusto estar con ustedes. I'm limping around because as you could see, I have a bad knee. I'm usually, if you know me, I'm usually running around in heels. But I think somebody's trying to tell me something about slowing down. So I'm trying to take that lesson. So I'm gonna sit if that's okay with all of you. But before I do that, I want to share with you that when the women janitors in our union decided that they had had enough, they stood up and they led in a way that was inspiring, that was vibrant, that was beautifully bold. And they said, ya, basta. Enough is enough. And sometimes we all know that it takes hitting rock bottom. It takes just years after years. And it comes a time where you say enough is enough. And that's what they did. So I'm going to ask you to stand with them. Let's all stand. And I'm going to, and we're going to do a little chant here so that you could experience that ya basta the same way that we did. So and let's see who can do it the loudest, and you can give me a little fist, or you can, whatever comes to mind. But I'm going to ask you to say with me. Cuando diga ya, digan basta. Ya, ya. No. Voy a hacer un stretch, necesito unas ganas, como que ya estuvo, así como lo hicimos cuando empezamos. So, cuando diga ya, digan basta. Ya, ya. Cuando diga ya, digan basta. Ya, ya. When I say ya, you say basta. Ya, ya. When I say ya, you say basta. Ya, ya. Yeah. Very good. ¿Se puede? ¿Se pudo? Okay, I feel better now. Now I could sit. Now I could sit. Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. So I started thinking a while back about what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm usually one of those people when somebody says, oh, I had this whole speech written out and then I tore it up and I'm just going to go from the heart. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be really bad, So, but I have to be honest with you that I was thinking that. And I really wanted to highlight all the beautiful work that our organization embarked on. And those moments where there was a light bulb that went up that said, this is different. This feels different. I see it differently. It smells different, and it made us uncomfortable. But I want to share with you those moments that I don't think maybe even some of the promotoras don't know about the real hardships and the real turning points and defining moments on these efforts that we haven't really talked about. Because when I was sitting in the office and we were working together with Denise Solis, our first vice president, who's here, with Lilia Garcia Bowers, with Sandra Diaz, who's our political director, and really one of the main architects of the policy, we were all a little demoralized. And we knew about this dirty little secret called rape on the night shift and the sexual assault, harassment, stalking, and rape of women janitors. So how many of you have driven around at night, maybe in New York, in Los Angeles, here in San Francisco, and have seen a little light up in one of the skyscrapers? How many of you have seen that? Have driven around at night? ¿Cuántos hemos visto eso, right? And usually when you see that light, it's not somebody who forgot to turn off the lights in the office. Usually it is a janitor who is in there at night, cleaning those buildings, scrubbing those toilets, dusting off the picture frames, and throwing out the trash. And almost 70% of those people that are doing that are women. And they're working those floors pretty much by themselves. Maybe there's a foreman in that building who walks around late at night. Sometimes those foremen, they show up to those buildings drunk. It's at night. Something happens when the moon goes out and there's nobody out in the streets. So there's a lot of different situations that make it the perfect climate and environment for hunting in these buildings. And many of those women are immigrant women. And many of them are undocumented. And so in our union, very proudly, Justice for Janitors was born, back in the 80s. You had the structure of the janitorial industry was changing. You had building owners like the Wells Fargo, the JP Morgan Chase, the Blackstone that were used to hire the property managers, and they used to hire the janitors directly or the security officers directly. But then they started contracting them out. So all of a sudden, you had all of these contractors that were busting out. And anybody with a broom and a mop could become a janitorial contractor. So you saw a lot of lawlessness in this industry. At the same time, you saw the war in Central America and El Salvador, the Civil War, where a lot of people were fleeing their country, coming here to the United States for the American dream. And it was during that time that many of the women here today came to this country, fleeing for a better life, fleeing for their lives. Many of them had lost their husbands, their kids, their children, their brothers, their family members. And there was also something that was happening with immigration reform. With President Reagan, all of that was happening. There was employer-sponsored, right? So you had to, there's the guest worker programs. All of that was also happening. And so that created some conditions as well with employers that they saw an opportunity. We saw an opportunity for cheap labor. We can break up the unions, and we can hire all of these wave of workers, and which are going to be very vulnerable. We can exploit. We can engage in wage theft, and they're not going to say anything because they don't want to be deported. And during those times, the labor movement had to have a real honest conversation with ourselves. And this is all unions, which historically don't look like people in this room. And part of that was, are we going to help immigrant workers organize? Are we going to help lift up the conditions for them? Or are they part of the problem? Are they breaking up unions? Are they lowering the standards? They're being okay with people paying them cash underneath the table. They are, they're scabs. They're taking union jobs. And there was a huge debate. I remember I was really young, starting out. There's a huge debate on, do we organize them? Or do we just say no? Do unions take on immigration justice? And there was many people, like the president of our union, David Huerta, Mike Garcia, obviously there, many, many leaders that were challenging unions to do more. But oftentimes, as many of you know, in the struggle for racial justice or immigration justice or our movements, certain people and marginalized communities are asked to take a step back. Not right now. We talk about what's happening to immigrant women, and we talk about what's happening to Black women, and we talk about what's happening to the LGBTQ community, then that takes away from the overall movement. We got to stay united, and we'll get to that. Does that ring a bell, or am I, right? And so I share this with you in that this is not something that we just dealt with on this campaign on Ya Basta. This is systemic in our institutions. This is systemic in unions. And it's been happening for decades. And there's people that go out there, they die, they fight for it, and then we find ourselves trying to fight the same fight to protect the things that we had already won. So when Rape on the Night Shift came out, there was an email that was sent with a link saying, have you seen this? To our union and to a lot of the unions that represent janitors. And immediately we got another email that said, don't share it. we need to figure out what to do with this and what our response is going to be to this. And so Denise, Lilia, Sandra, and I were kind of like looking at each other. And I share with you that many of us are also survivors. And there was that moment where, we kind of get used to sometimes just biting our tongue, or it feels uncomfortable, and we were like, no. And we have to do something about this. We can't be a janitors union and represent janitors if we don't do something about this. But it wasn't easy, because it was challenging a predominantly, it's much more diverse now, but a predominantly immigrant, sexist, misogynistic culture, not just in the industry of the janitors, not just where they work in the buildings, but in our union. And I say this with all the love in the world, because there is no other place that I would rather be. I say it because our organization had to decide to do things differently. It had been years, over decades of justice for janitors. Everybody knew that this had been going on and had looked away. And it felt really hard, because there was going to be a lot of pushback. So the first thing that we had to do, the very first thing, and honestly, it was a moment where we were like, it's heavy. It feels really heavy. We're not experts in this. But we didn't have to be. So the first thing that we did differently is say, it's okay that we don't know. We don't know. Even though I've been raped, even though I've been, whatever our situation was in the union, even though I've gone through this, it's okay that I don't have the answers. There's a beautiful community out there that commits themselves and wakes up every single day, waking up and thinking about this. Let's ask for help. So that was the very first thing. And sometimes, personally, I have a hard time asking for help. When it comes to me, I'm like, I can ask. But so sometimes as an organization, we have a hard time asking for help and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. The second thing was, when we started asking for help, it wasn't just anybody asked for help, anybody. There was like, all of a sudden you had all these academics, you had all these people with PowerPoints, you had like these, like pamphlets, and we're looking at that, and I was like, and how am I gonna, go to the general membership meeting with this? And so again, and we, Sandra Diaz talked to Sandra Enriquez here and Lilia, and they're like, no, let's start with the experts. And who are the experts? Who are the experts? The women, the janitors. Why are we going to bring in somebody to talk to them about their industry? They know their industry. Let's create a space for them to become empowered, and for them to talk about what's going on, and for them to say, here's what we think the solutions are. This is how we change the culture of our industry. And then we can use the tools that are out there and figure out how we adjust them, because this has never been done, not in this industry. So that was a huge aha lesson, because, with all my years and my upbringing, there's certain privilege that I stand on. There's certain blind spots that I have. So I have a problem. Oh, where's the professional? Where's my therapist? So, well, that's a privilege, right? And so why not go to them and figure out with them what the solutions are? And that's what we did, front and center. And I tell you that when we decided to do that and be intentional about it, everything changed. We stopped talking about the issue as if it was up here. And, it's just something that happens academically, and, stalking is this, sexual harassment is this, rape is this. We started talking about the real problems, that a woman in the building had been raped with her broomstick, and she didn't realize that had been rape, because it was not the traditional genitalia that she thought in her mind was what constituted rape. That many of them did not know the difference between harassment and assault, or rape. And that there were so many things in our culture that were toxic, that they were carrying from decades and from their own countries when they crossed the border, that they hadn't healed. So we had to think differently about how we organized. And there's always a part of the organizing that's a science, and then there's the art. But this was the art and the science. We just hadn't really put it front and center. And so we did that, and we started the promotoras. And it was a beautiful journey. And we did it not as, Alejandra, Secretary Treasurer, Chief of Staff of the Union, but as a survivor in it with them, sharing those stories, because it got really hard. There was many of them, they stand here and they look really strong with their handkerchiefs, but they'll tell you when they stood in front of their coworkers and got booed, how devastating that was. When the social media bullying started happening, ustedes mismas se suben las faldas. You yourself raise pick up your skirt so that, you can open up opportunities for you in the buildings. When when they came back from fasting in Sacramento, and some of the men in the buildings had started putting used condoms in their trash bins. Like, that's the stuff that you probably didn't hear about. That made it really hard every single day when we were together, like, okay, you almost put your guard up. We were going up, we were talking to the members, you had to put your game face on. But that would have not been possible had we not done the promotoras, because we had such a cohort. Leti and Dora and Merlene, Georgina, it's like we would take a bullet. We would stand in front of, like, you're not going to get to us. That's not my truth. And we would protect each other. So the other thing that we had to do differently is say, we don't need all the buy-in in the world. We're not going to change every single janitor and security officer's mind so that we could do what we know is right. This is irrefutable. We know it's happening. Our members, in a survey that not everybody knew about, put that this was one of the top 3 issues in bargaining. Granted, if you did it openly in a general membership meeting, that was, it was going to look differently. But they had said this in a survey that they filled out in the privacy of their own homes or in their buildings. So we knew we had to do something about it. But we also knew that we weren't going to get everybody's buy-in right away. So what we had was a small group of strong women that had their backs. And they had been through many, many wars before. And they made that commitment to each other, to be a cohort, to go through this together. And that's what helped us. So that was the other thing that we had to do differently. And I just share that with you because sometimes we think as progressives, wait, but I don't have buy-in from everybody, so I need to do all the work. If we had waited for that, we would not even be at 1/3 of our membership doing that. We knew this was wrong. We called it what it was. We said, ya basta, enough is enough. And this is going to stop, and it stops today. And we're going to change the culture and do what we have to do. So I want to give the promotoras a big round of applause for their courage. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the moments where we cried, they were front and center of all of it. And we end with so I'm out of time, but I want to leave you with this. The entire efforts have felt hard. They felt uncomfortable. It took on not just the industry, but looking at ourselves in a real way about what we had to do to fix ourselves. And if we hadn't done that, we would not be anywhere where we are, and it's not over. We have a lot more work to do, but when we lead from here, that's different because you can get so caught up in a lot of other things that make it feel really heavy and overwhelming. So with that, I leave you. I hope that you have the opportunity to go up to many of the women that are here today that have embarked on this. But our work's not over. Through this process, we have learned that it's not just women, it's our LGBTQ community within our own members that are struggling also to say, this is how it's impacting me. And you saw that on the video of Rape on the Night Shift. And we have a lot more work to do, but I know that when we lead from here, when we lead with our hearts, when we don't get so caught up about, just looking at it from I would say just more of an academic standpoint, that we can win, because we did win. We won something. We haven't won, we haven't finished this journey, but we will continue to embark on the work that we need to do, and it starts with looking at our own blind spots. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I look forward to talking to you through the rest of the conference. Gracias.